Awesome. Yeah. So, hi everyone. Good morning. Thank you to be here. It's like really such a big effort. So we have to provide you with very interesting stuff because you are like here at this time so early in the morning after the party of yesterday. So, I mean, we are really under pressure because we need to justify this plenary. Okay, I'm really happy to be here to discuss with Giuseppe Pellegrini, Francesco Suman, Sofia Bellardinelli, and Marta Toninetti about an issue that we think that could be of interest, that is called the art of communication. So, just 1 minute to frame why we decide to define this plenary and why we decide these words precisely. So, I am an economist by training, and I've been told that human nature can be easily described by two simple principles: instrumental rationality and separability. From this viewpoint, it emerges that a weird idea on how to boost changes. So, by specific nudges that modify benefits and costs, or reporting data statistics, it would be enough to stimulate mechanical responses in humans. So humans are seen as computable machines. So is this enough? We think that no. Indeed, from the studies of Kahneman and Tversky, we know that we are not maximizing machines. Indeed, there is a compelling drama going on in our minds. A film-like plot between two main characters with twists, dramas, and tensions. These two characters are the impulsive, automatic, intuitive system 1 and the thoughtful, deliberate, calculating system 2. As they play off against each other, their interactions determine how we think, make judgments and decisions, and act. So our minds are lazy, and most of the time we act by using the automatic pilot, so by emotional feelings, not simply by we see data and we change our behavior. So I think that this can be linked with the idea suggested by the historian Harari, who claims that humans are storytelling animals, who build an imagined reality that is something that everyone believes in, and as long as this communal belief persists, the imagined reality exerts force in the world. In other words, to collaborate, we need a common vision, such as myth, religion, and science. So this is not a critique. We just have to recognize that we cannot escape from this. We need to invent effective common narratives to actively act on the reality and change it. So from these considerations, born the idea of this plenary and this specific title. So art relates to the practical actions, and in general, it recalls an holistic attitude capable to hit our emotional system. And communication relates, of course, to the diffusion of information, but it also means putting together, so creating a common system of value. Indeed, we are not isolated maximizing machines. Rather, we constantly interact with the others. We are relational beings. To conclude, this morning, we have the pleasure to hear both theoretical explanations and practical examples of the art of communication. And hopefully, we will know if and how Achilles will catch up with the tour to us. Okay, so we can start with...
Okay. So here we are. And good morning to everyone. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here with the economist. I am a sociologist, so different discipline, but from one side, some common things. In my talk, I would like to propose some data regarding the citizens' perception and perspective on science communication, given that, in the recent years, we lived a very interesting period regarding the pandemic, in which we have an overexposure of experts in the media, in the public sphere, and for me, it was a very interesting experiment to know these different virus stars talking about science, about the virus, and so and so. But I will start with some data coming from a qualitative experiment with citizens regarding the power of video and audio messages. And then I would like to propose something regarding quantitative data on the Italian people, the public opinion of Italian people on science and technology. So the idea is to propose some general thoughts, and then in order to give you some ideas to discuss in a second phase. The first part is about this tricky term. Tresca project is an international project. For Italian people, Tresca is a sort of a bad affair, but this is not the case. Tresca is an acronym that means Trustworthy, Reliable, and Engaging Scientific Communication Approaches Project. So the idea is to study how people trust in science, especially in using the communication, with sources, what is reliable, what is credible in science communication. In general, science is communication, which means all science. We organized workshops with the citizens in 3 different countries, in Italy, in the Netherlands, and Austria, involving 20 people in a sort of experiment looking at 2 kinds of videos. And the workshop proposed a video regarding fake news and coronavirus. There's a lot of fake news regarding the coronavirus. And another video focused on this idea of interesting people, talking people in the hospital, so with a different perspective of human situation, especially in health. And this is the design of the workshop, divided in 3 sessions. The first one was proposing a video without sound in order to understand the power only of the images. The second one was the complete video with audio and video. And for each session, there was a discussion in order to understand which kind of impression, which kind of emotion they had watching at the video without and with sound. And in the end, a first discussion with the opportunity to collect recommendations, suggestions, in order to understand how this kind of experiments give us some useful insights. So some general conclusion or results. There are a big gap between video and audio messages. Usually in the video messages, stereotypes, strong messages are proposed, and there is a strong emotional impact on the people, on citizens. And if we talk about the complete video and audio, we note that fact does matter. So what is important, it's not the emotion in general, but the fact that you propose as a scientific fact. data. And also, another interesting thing is that there is the responsibility of citizens as users and the spreaders of communication. They said, well, we can use this kind of messages and we can be multipliers of fake news or good news. So what does it mean? Probably from one side that science communicators have to adapt in a good way communication formats and languages for different media. And also it was important for us to understand that people do not want emotional excesses. So experts which propose data in a strong way, trying to convince the public. And so this is not well appreciated. Of course, this is a qualitative study. It's difficult to extend to the whole population, but probably this is a key point, because also in other data we found that people usually appreciated experts which propose in a clear, polite way data. So this is another relevant point. So another interesting thing was this talk about this called fact-checking debunking. You know, there are a lot of tools in the web trying to propose to the people, well, go to the fact-checking and try to understand if the news is correct or not. Well, people are not familiar with this kind of. There is a big effort from the big companies, also from the public authorities to propose. Also in Italy, we have many fact-checkers from the ministries, but people are not familiar, do not use this kind of fact-checking tools. And also, we found that probably it's better to strengthen the tools to combat disinformation for typical and specialized audiences, such as journalists, press offices, and so on. Here, I'm going to present some quantitative data coming from the Italian Monitor on Science in Society. This is a representative sample of the Italian population by age, gender, education. During the pandemic in 2020 and 2021, we had 5 waves in order to understand the trend regarding the perception of people of something connecting to the communication. So, one interesting thing was, and this is counterintuitive data, that usually we think that in the web era, in the visual era, probably people are well connected, probably people can get information on the web, and this is not the case. If you look at this data, this the main source of information in the first phase during the first pandemic, 2020, was the television, and then grew up, and then usually, but at the first point, television and radio are the best and the mailing source of information. If you look at social page of friends and, for example, Facebook, and this is not the case. There are very, very few used. And this is clear also if we are talking about trust. Which source do you trust most? And it is clear that, of course, in the case of the pandemic, step by step, the role of physician grew up, of course, given that we are talking about health. And for Italian people, the family doctor is probably one of the main source. But again, it's interesting for us to look at this data. Okay, Italy is not the best country for the use of internet, social media, but we are not in the last point. But the idea is that, again, probably If we are talking about science and technology issues, probably the web or the social media are not the main useful tools. Probably because, as you know, in the social media, it's a matter of black and white. And if you are talking about, for example, the pandemic or a virus, we are talking in a complex. It's not a black and white. And usually the social media are a polarizing position. Okay. Another interesting thing, it was the role of experts in the public sphere. So usually in Italy, and not only in Italy, the best source in terms of expert are scientists or public administration sources. But during the pandemic, what happened? That one part of the Italian scientific experts that have been to different opinion, confusion had been created. So this is a general trend. Look, in the case of May 2021, 6 on 10 sustained that scientists and experts in the public sphere propose a lot of confusion. This is clear, but why? Because it was probably a first time in the story of science, in my mind, that scientists had the occasion to discuss, not in the single community, but in the public sphere, probably in an unusual way, and it was a very extreme way to propose these different pros and cons, because it's normal in a scientific community. You fight against different positions, but if you do it in the public sphere, it's completely different, because we are talking about health, we are talking about death, and so on and so. So it's a matter of responsibility, and I don't know in different countries, but in Italy it was a very strong phenomenon. So one last thing regarding science and politics. So probably in times of uncertainty, again, scientific knowledge is used as a policy tool. Do you remember that we have a lot of procedure to manage communication when there is a disaster, when there is a pandemic, but it never happened. During the pandemic, there was a confusion in communication. There were a lot of different voices, as the citizens perceived. And probably the communication of science is not only a matter of single shots, but it's a matter of a long-term relationship that have to be created to understand which kind of position that people, which kind of citizens want regarding clear messages. So just to give you some ideas, thank you for your attention. Waiting for your questions.
Okay. Thanks a lot for your very interesting talk. The idea is, since we will have a round table of 1 hour and a half, we can move the discussion there. So you can write down the questions on your cards, and then we can discuss later. If we have 5 minutes at the end of the presentation, good. Otherwise, we will have in room 5 after the coffee break the round table with all the speakers in order to have in this room. Okay. Yeah. In one room there will be the the round table. Okay, so the next. Okay, so the next speaker is Marta Tuninetti. She's an engineer, hydrological engineer. And please introduce yourself, because you know better yourself than me. So.
Thanks, Tiziano. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be here today. I'm environmental engineering. I'm now assistant professor at Politecnico di Torino. And today I'm gonna present you a dissemination project we have done together with my research group in the past 2 years. Before spoiling it, let me start with a video. So it was 2020, and we were on a set. Actually, behind this scene, we were 10 people working for this video. It took us quite a lot of time, especially because in my group, we were mostly engineers and economists. So first of all, we needed to hire a team of communicators. But let me start from the beginning by telling that our project is water to food, so it's about water resources. And with this project, we aim to take care of water resources in the global food system. The slide I'm going to show have been prepared by Benedetta Falsetti, which is here in the public, also together with Carla Sciarra. And we started this project, as I said, in 2020. We were in, COVID had just started at that time. We were on a Zoom call and we started to discuss about, okay, it has been 5 years since the ERC project we were working in was financed by the European Union. And so what now? So we felt that we need to bring our results outside academia. We want to bridge the society. We want to communicate. So we hire some graphics, some computer science expert, and a social media manager and art director. And together with this team, we basically set up our water to food project. So we realized a data visualization handbook, then a video campaign. You've seen the first video. We'll show you the second one. Of course, we want to be to identify also our visual strategy. So we want to be also identified by the general public. And of course, we created a website with a specific page about play with data. So we want people also to play with our data. So we started with the visual identity, and since the project is about water, we start with the shape of water. So we start with a drop, and then we realized that by upside down the drop, it can also become the Google pin on the maps. And this was very important for us because where you use water, where you withdraw water, it matters a lot because if you think at the global scale, water has a very different value. You can compare a place where water is very scarce to a place where it's abundant. And so we decided that the drop was our symbol, and then we connect two drops, meaning that basically each place is connected. So we connect, for us, the two drops were two countries. So every time two countries trade food, that was our core of the project, they also trade water, meaning that a country that uses water to produce its food, then basically it kind of also source its water to the other country. Then we move on and trying to be also coherent with our visual identity, we basically put online this data set. It was aimed to be an interactive tool. So we want people to play with our data with the hope that they could get some awareness about the theme of water resources. So you can also go online and check it and tell us is a good tool. The website is watertofood.org. And you can see both bubble telling you what's the water footprint of the food that we consume, so how much water is needed to produce food, or you can know about the relation between countries in terms of water resources. And of course, this data set is completely open access. This was a request also from the European Union, but at the same time, we really wanted to share all the 5 years elaborations and analysis. And this probably was the most difficult and tough part. So we realized a handbook. So the aim here was to basically collect all the figures, data, analysis we have done in 5 years and try to put them in some good charts, some good images. We were supported by great graphics. And yeah, it took nearly 2 years to finish this book. Now we are realizing what's coming next. So now we just have like 50 copies printed for the group, but we hope to share it very soon. And finally, of course, we needed to communicate also through social media. So we put our project also on the most common social media you should know. And we kind of launch all our strategies on the World Water Day in 2021. And to conclude, do I have time? Okay. To conclude, I want to show you the second part of the video. So the first one you have seen, we were explained that it was a hero video. So it is supposed to give the message very quickly with just 30 seconds of images and sound. But then we realized also a breakdown video.
I'm really surprised after this splash of water making a smug manner inside the supermarket. So, I feel that for this reason, you are here. You may be wondering how you did this, or you may be asking yourself why. We were committed to you in this video. First, the filming did not take place for the supermarket, but in the studio, with the use of not so special effects. The second was the adjusted photograph. Second, we use a single bucket of water to shoot, increasing the volume of the 3D water. This is how we do the water. For us, it is essential not to waste water, but we will talk more about this shortly. Then comes the water. Finally, we've added a digital counter to show the exact amount of water that falls on the menu. Why do we do it? Because we wanted to fill all 3,340 liters of water in your face. But on average, also it takes fruits to be perfect. In fact, every product or service you use on a daily basis requires a quantity of water to be created, which we usually don't pay attention to. Tracing this request is called water footprint. You know it, right? Probably because of that, it cannot be found in any product. We discovered this thanks to the team of researchers from Water to Food Project who analyzed and organized database for water footprint of food, which is available to all. So we learned, for example, that to reach the workout matter once, it takes more than 3 tons of water than global average. Of course, to have a hamburger it is necessary to raise an adult bovine, which costs 1,890 mg per animal overall. Considering all the factors necessary for adequate breeding. Essentially, to raise the animal needed to make a hamburger, the same amount of water it takes to build a jacuzzi where our manager wants to relax every weekend will be consumed. Let's take a closer look at our manager's hamburger. From Brazil, the cost of which coincides with world average. This is because the managers of Canada farm takes seasons. Here, on the other hand, e-bought products from Italy, the water cost of the would be almost half, about 1,083 liters of water. In fact, the water cost of both animal and vegetable food changes based on climatic conditions, processes, and the efficiency of irrigation and production practices, as well as the amounts of water available in the countries of production. We could do the same with the other items on managers' cards, analyzing them following a typical day. In the morning, to start his day of breakfast, he used the right amount of Ethiopian coffee. A package costs 2,358 liters of water, accompanied by a nice glass of Italian milk, which costs 703 liters of water. Mid-morning is a moment for energizing snack, Turkish hazelnuts to munch on in front of the PC, of which only 1 hectare costs 667 liters of water. In the evening, you can finally enjoy his Brazilian burger tucked between 2 classic American buns that cost 318 liters each, which he likes to combine with Chick-fil-A and avocado, which costs 713 liters of water each. In total, the water cost of this card comes to a whopping 8,185 liters. You've never thought about that cost. Not even our manager had ever thought. But thanks to the work of our researchers, he now knows that if he were able to weigh his consumption of water, the total weight would be that. Well, maybe he understood it, or maybe not. Got it. I won't turn to the vegetarian now that I this. None of the cases, of course. But these scientists also taught me that governments, the World Health Organization, for a healthy and sustainable diets recommend eating red meat more than once a week. Mediterranean diets, so bread, pasta, fruits, and vegetables, fish, eggs, pulses, cheese, red and white meats in the right quantities. And if we say so. Anyway, this is not my worse. But it's our background practical investment for sure. Don't be like that. Don't get caught unprepared. Now, you will understand why we will continue to only 1 bucket of water. Because water matters. Find out more at www.watertofood.org.
Thank you very much.
I'm a bit hungry. Maybe I will eat an hamburger now. Okay, the next one is Francesco Suman. He's a philosopher. As you have noticed, we have no economist here. It's not by chance. It's by purpose. So please introduce yourself.
Yes. The slides, where can I find them? Sì. Okay, thank you, Tiziano. There we go. Thank you, Tiziano. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I am Francesco Suman. I'm a former philosopher, actually. Now I am a freelance science journalist. And today I will talk to you about this magazine, a university magazine at the University of Padova, and how this magazine covers the climate crisis. I will give you a very general overview of the magazine, and then Sofia, a colleague of mine, will present a more specific project within this magazine. So this is the home page of the magazine. It is an online magazine. This is how it appears. It is edited by the University of Padova, and the format is like we publish 3, 4, sometimes 5 exceptionally articles a day. They are usually medium or long form articles, so they are in-depth articles on current news, for example, and when it's possible with a scientific angle. Of course, we give voice to the world of research in this magazine, but we do not talk exclusively about science and research in this magazine. In fact, we talk about culture in general, for example, literature, democracy issues, foreign affairs, and when possible, we give voice to researchers giving a comment on some current news. By doing this, the magazine fulfills the university third mission, of course, but I think it does something more, because it provides publicly accessible, advertisement-free, and I believe high-quality information service to anybody who is interested in knowing some topic more in depth, let's say. And I believe that in this magazine is a kind of a unique example in the current Italian media ecosystem and journalistic landscape. So this is how the editorial staff is organized. Il Bo Live was, when it was founded, it was in this current version. It was renovated from a previous version in 2018. And at that time, Pietro Greco was his chief editor. He has been one of the best science journalists in Italy we ever had. Unfortunately, he left us abruptly in December 2020. And since then, Elisabetta Tola is our chief editor, another well-known science journalist, data journalist in Italy. And the editor-in-chief is Telmo Pievani, who is a public figure, well-known public figure in Italy, and he is also the rector's delegate of communication of the University of Padua. The editorial staff is a bit of a mix of public employees. Some of them are former journalists and freelance journalists, such as myself and other contributors. We also have graphic design and video and photo editing staff, because we are a kind of multimedia magazine, because we publish written articles, medium or long form articles, but also we publish video interviews, and of course we also have podcasts. Sophia will tell you more about that. And again, I want to stress this thing. We do not only interview professors or researchers from the University of Padua, because we are not the bulletin of the University of Padua. We interview researchers, experts from all over Italy, from all over the world. In this case, I was lucky enough to interview David Quammen about the microbic world, his last book, The Tangled Tree, and antibiotic resistance, of course. So again, this is the home page. We have the leading news stories in the foreground, and then these news boxes below. On the left, there is this menu where we collect the various topics of articles in what are their journalistic series, okay? And one of these series is about the climate crisis, and I will talk you about this very briefly. It is called something like The Climate We Want. We started this series in March 2021, because it was a very important year for climate. Of course, there was the COP26 in November in Glasgow, and then, of course, we continue talking about the climate even after the meeting, the Glasgow meeting. Since March 2021, we published something like 100 news features, so medium long-form articles on a series of topics such as climate news, climate research news, energy policy, of course the IPCC reports, circular economy, sustainable development, providing experts' views on climate, adaptation and mitigation options. We talk about climate justice, of course, the relationship between the economy and the climate system and the climate crisis. And we have also some journalistic investigative reports. I will tell you more about this in a minute. This is just a very brief collection of examples of articles we publish, we try to address a very broad audience. So, for example, we have this Climactionary, which is a sort of a dictionary for climate terminology, which, of course, addresses a very broad audience. So, for example, we explain basic terminology, climate terminology, such as the greenhouse gas effect, the greenhouse gas, the greenhouse effect, and so on. As I mentioned, we covered the IPCC report, both the presentation of the general report, but also we have a series of articles dedicated to the Working Group 2 reports published in February. So, for example, we have some explanation of the impacts of climate change on specific regions of the Earth. So, for example, here we have an article on the impact on small islands, and then, of course, we also have more in-depth articles, for example, on the scientific aspects of how you disentangle the components of a battery, and in order to recycle it, of course. So a very broad range of topics. We meet twice a week virtually since the pandemic. So our editorial staff meetings is via Zoom, but we also go places physically. So, for example, I went to Milan last September, listening to what these young fellows at the Youth for Climate had to say. And here you can see a selfie with Greta Thunberg, which was not so enthusiastic, but I don't know if it was about the selfie or about the conference, so I still have a doubt on that. So this is an example of the investigative reports we do. It is about environment more in general. It is about how nuclear wastes are managed in Italy. It is called something like Wastes at Rest. We have collaborations with the various science festivals, such as the Genova Science Festival, a festival in Padova, which was held at the beginning of this month. Of course, we are here at the ESEE conference. We have, as I mentioned, written articles, video interviews, podcasts, but also we have a series of books. We don't have one yet on the climate crisis, but hopefully it might be, well, one of the next coming out. I will briefly conclude just giving a few numbers to tell you how where we are at the moment. So in 2021, Il Live had 2,800,000 users, single users. Of course, we have a great growth during the pandemic because, as Giuseppe told, it was a moment in which science was very much represented in the media, and we talk about science also. These are the data about 2022 here, and just for the first 4 months of the year, and so we are in line with the last 2 years. The majority of our audience is below the 40 age of years, and we have a slight majority of women reading the magazine. Comparing Il Live to other university magazines in Italy, we have numbers which are far above the others, but again, because we are not a typical university magazine, we are something different, as I hope I explained today. And comparing us with the international university magazine, so during the first 4 months of the year, we had around 800,000 users. The Harvard magazine had 480,000. We are almost there reaching Berkeley News. We are trying to. And for example, the MIT News is far in a distance, but we are doing our best. And thank you very much for your attention.
So thanks a lot, Francesco. So here we have with the last presentation, Sofia Belardinelli. She's another philosopher. So we are like really.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Sofia. I am a PhD student and I try to be a scientific journalist in Il Live with Francesco and the rest of the team. And today I'm presenting a project that I am creating with Tiziano. It is a podcast on ecological economics. So It is called Back to the Future: Talks on Ecological Economics. And it was created by ILBO Live. The team believed in this project, so they are helping us, and the University of Pisa, of course, and we are in collaboration with an illustrator that is Lorenza Luzzati, and she has created this image and other comics that you will see later. You can find all the podcasts. It is a mix of different media. As Giuseppe has said, it is a slightly similar project. We have the podcast, obviously, written articles, both in Italian and in English. You can see all the articles that have been published so far in this QR code. And we are trying, why a series on ecological economics in Italy? Of course, we all know that the ESEE has his podcast, but we are addressing the Italian audience mainly. When I encountered ecological economics, I understood that it is mainly absent from the public discourse in Italy. And in the Italian academic research, it is still a minority topic. So we thought that it would be interesting to communicate these topics to the Italian and international magazine. And what better than an academic magazine that tries to bridge academia and society than to communicate these issues. And ILBO Live is such a thing, so we try to create this connection. So Tiziano and me, we collaborate by chance. We started collaborated from an interview we made about 10 years ago about sustainability and environmental protection. And this was the interview in Italian, of course. We had the video interview and so on. And we started collaborating. We came out with this idea of a podcast. It is an interdisciplinary because he is an economist, I'm a philosopher, so we merged our backgrounds. And we first decided what topics to discuss, to address, how to address them. I'm coming to that later. And we ended up with an interview style in podcast, not in video, to experts on very different topics. So we have sociologists, economists, mathematicians, philosophers. And then we had to decide what medium to use. We have technological chances, and we discovered them, many of them in the pandemics. So we thought, why sticking to a traditional communication style that has its limits when we have the possibility to mix languages and eventually reach a wider public through, for example, not only rational but also emotional communication. So we mixed languages, communication languages. So we have the audio, the written article, of course, both in Italian and in English, as I was saying, and the comics, and I'm coming to that. Yeah, we have the making of is, I don't know, a handicrafted project. So we had the interviews mainly on Zoom. Here you see Susan Paulson, that unfortunately is not here. And the podcast that you can hear in the website. Every episode is 15-20 minutes of podcast in English, so you can all enjoy that. And then we had the comics. This was Tiziano's idea in reality, and it is very interesting to merge art and science communication because art can help us address complex notions such as that of ecological economics in a more immediate way and more emotional ways. So we started collaborating with Lorenza Luzzati, who is an illustrator and comic artist. She is very good at what she does, and she is based in Milan. You can see her work on that website. And we decided to she interprets our articles that are very serious and complicated in a satiric way. So there is a spoiler alert. I'm showing the first comics she made for our series, and there is a poor mainstream economist that is going on with different bad adventures, such that. And you can see all the other comics in the coming episodes. So, concluding remarks are about scientific communication. As Giuseppe Pellegrini was saying, scientific communication is very important for society, and it is important first because we as scientific communicators, we have the duty to provide as best as we can high quality information on topical issues, because obviously, as we all know, science is a political issue, and I'm coming on that later. We have this duty because we can promote, by informing people, a competent and calm, hopefully, public debate on heated political topics, as is not the case, for example, in the pandemics in Italy. And by focusing, for example, on ecological economics, that is a minority issue in the public debate in Italy, we can suggest to the general public that alternative paths to the current mainstream economic exist, and we can act to make them a reality. In this respect, so science communication is a political act. It is very embedded in policy. It is used as a policy tool, but it has to be used well. Scientific knowledge is not about communicating. Scientific knowledge is not only about curiosity and knowledge, but it is a right and duty, both for scientific communicators to communicate at best what we know, and for individuals to be informed and to we have both the right and the duty as citizens to be informed and to engage in this science debate. So finally, I would like to end with a quote that is: "The demand for participation of all citizens in technical choices is typical of the society of knowledge." That is the society where we are in, and it is undeniable. But if poorly organized, if it invites non-informed citizens to express their views, it exposes society to the winds of demagogy. If on the other hand, it is well organized and calls upon to participate citizens who are increasingly well informed, it broadens the space of democracy without sacrificing the efficiency and effectiveness of choices. And as Francesco was anticipating, it is a quote by our beloved Pietro Greco, which was our former chief editor, and he was a very important scientific journalist in Italy. And he came up with this idea, and it's a very important legacy for us at Il Live, of scientific citizenship and scientific democracy. So thank you very much.
So here we are on time. So we are really happy. I hope you have enjoyed this. It's not a debate because they present their work. So I warmly invite you to join the next plenary about sustainable finance that will take place in 5 minutes, I think. I mean, actually 3 minutes ago, but we are almost there. And then after the coffee break, there will be the roundtables on both this plenary. So thank you all. Yeah.
Do we get the questions now or at the round?
Come? Ah, we collect but also in present now. Okay, so we can collect the questions that you have written on your cards, if any, and then we will, I mean, those of you that will be present there can participate to the roundtable and the debate. So thanks you all.